Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Men on Form podcast. I am one of your hosts, Micheal Hilton, and I am here with my partner in crime, Mr. Clive, Maxheath. How you doing, my friend?
I'm very well. Greetings, gentlemen and ladies. Very, very well, and looking forward to this episode. Yes, very much so.
What is this episode? What are we talking about today, Clive?
We're talking about it's something that was very present in my own life in between the season 1 and now season 2 of Men on Form. I had a period where I was really feeling this particular thing, and it's also something that's come into my men's coaching practice, particularly in the last couple of years, actually. And that is the topic and theme of overwhelm.
Ooh, I know. Well, it's funny enough. A lot of guys that I work with, this is probably one of their biggest struggles as well, man. And I think a lot of people. We speak to guys. It's Men on Form. We have some women listeners. Not saying that women don't experience the overwhelm, but
oh god, of course.
It's a lot. It's a big issue for a lot of guys, especially in my coaching practice, man.
Big time. I mean, and we're going to open with a definition here, just to give us just something to get our teeth into, right? So this is from the Collins Dictionary, English. Overwhelmed. If you are overwhelmed by a feeling or event, it affects you very strongly, and you do not know how to deal with it.
Yeah. Okay.
And I mean, what does that sort of bring about in you, Micheal, when you hear that definition of being overwhelmed?
Let's go back. I would say let's go back to the most present time let's go back to a time when I experienced overwhelm at its worst. So when I was most overwhelmed in my life. So my boy had just been born. I just got married, and my business that I was building at the time, that was back in 2014. October 2014 was when I kind of had my breakdown. But that whole year leading up to that was just one big clusterfuck of fucking overwhelm, man. It was there was just so much going on in my melon, in my head, that I didn't know whether I was coming or going, basically, Clive, man. It was there was just so much going on. I had so much going on. I want to kind of dive into what to do about it, but we'll digress to that in a little bit. But yeah, it took me from I just couldn't focus. I couldn't be present.
Okay. Yep.
I couldn't focus. I couldn't be present. I was constantly just distracted. My attention span was just very, very short. You know, I was constantly multitasking because I just always felt overwhelmed with a long list of things to do. I had my face buried in my phone, on my laptop, especially around business and work and in family life and all that. And it was just a big clusterfuck for me, man. One big clusterfuck. What's your experience with it, my man?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few things definitely resonating there, and I mean, I obviously experienced it at different times in my life, but none more so than the beginning of 2019. A bit of a similar theme. My son had been born 4 months before then, and so obviously, as is the nature of a newborn child, a lot going on at home, and a lot of change and pressure to particularly take care of my wife and him, and just doing a lot of work on the outside at that stage, which is the requirement for men at that time. But yeah, there was that going on at home, and then I was under in the job that I was in. I was working in a public sector, and I was under 4 days a week at the time. I was under a lot of pressure in the workplace with deadlines, and there was a particular project I was working on, and I was getting squeezed from different sides, and so it just felt like I'd sort of go from sort of one sort of like pressured canister or like one pressured environment into a different one, and I was just like swapping between the two. And similar to yourself, there were times where I was just struggling to concentrate, just feeling exhausted, and it just felt really And I think, yeah, we had that definition there, but there's just that idea of like, you know, when you're sort of in the water and your feet can't touch the bottom and you just sort of like just about got your head, like literally just about have my head above water, and just sort of underneath, working hard just to stay there. So,
I totally get that because I totally get it, man. Because I actually do struggle to tread water. That's something I do. I do, man. Like in real, if I'm in the sea or in the water, that is something I struggle with, man. I see these people doing their heads above water. I'm doing it, and my nose is just hanging out of the water. So that's a great analogy, man. Because that's what it felt like for me. It's just my nose was just taking a little bit of water, and I just, feet not touching the floor, man. So yeah, I totally get that.
So, but no, I mean, thankfully, I did have a really good support network around me during the time, and it wasn't about really changing things. There were certain things that just weren't in my control. It was just about finding space where I could, and constantly looking at ways I could adapt. And I'd say there was 3 things that really helped me during that time. The first one was having my own coach. And that is the gift that coaching brings in terms of just creating some space. I just had this hour with my coach where we'd just like take a step out of the madness and sort of work out where I was, and then look at what things I could put in place to help me at the time. The second one was my men's group. I go to on a monthly basis, and obviously sharing with other guys there. And the third one was other dads. Obviously, was sort of had a little network of dads who'd recently also had kids, and that we sort of like lent on each other from time to time, and we're sort of sharing what was going on. So those 3 things really helped me at that time.
Yeah, I would totally, man. Having that network of people, having like-minded men around you, guys that I think as well, the coaching aspect of someone's going to call you out on it, For me, I would say the problem with when I was struggling with overwhelm, and this is what I see of a lot of guys inside my groups and things like that, is they're not clear on what they need to achieve. Overwhelm builds up when they're not really clear on what needs to get done, and they've got a lot of stuff swirling around in their head, and they don't get it out and put it on paper. That's the one thing I'd always say. If you're experiencing any kind of overwhelm, sit down with pen and paper and get the stuff what's out of your head down on paper, because then you can get to see the reality of it. Because most of it is just it's just like filling up a cup. That's it, and you just keep filling, it just over spills. And that's one of the best things that I've done. Just get pen and paper out, write it down, and it's what I get my guys doing. You wouldn't believe the change that they have, just the clarity they have by getting it out of their head onto paper and then seeing the truth behind it. So,
nice.
and getting clear on what needs to get done. I shared this with you before we jumped on, like a couple of days ago. I started to experience a little bit of overwhelm because I was kind of thinking, as well as another thing is like, in my experience, is kind of projecting into the future too much and thinking about all the things that need to get done, what could possibly go wrong, all that kind of stuff without getting it on paper, and it just starts building up in your head. And I experienced this a couple of days ago. The difference is I just caught it very quickly. I started, I've got to get this done, got to get that done. I was like, whoa, stop. Let's sit down, pen and paper. What's the most important thing to get done? This. Okay. And then that, and then that. And it just went. The overwhelm just kind of dispersed because I was just very clear on what I needed to get done, and I had it out of my head on paper.
Yeah, that makes sense. You took that time to get clear, because I know something I can slip into when I feel sort of overwhelmed coming. It sort of builds up. I sort of feel it, and I can just start doing shit.
Yeah,
anything, anything, and suddenly can just find myself down a YouTube or WhatsApp wormhole quite quickly, and I've sort of recognised that in recent months. And rather than actually tackling what's at hand, it's sort of a way of sort of isolating a little bit. And no, I like that. Getting it out on paper, definitely. Definitely is good advice.
It's like you say, they're going down the wormhole of WhatsApp and things like that. It's a lot of people that are overwhelmed when they say I'm a procrastinator. I don't believe procrastinator even exists. What it basically is just so overwhelmed and you don't know what to do, so you just start distracting yourself on your phone or or on YouTube or things like that, just to kind of alleviate that build up of pressure of the overwhelm that's there. Do you know what I mean? You know?
Yeah, definitely. That's definitely something I can relate to. And what's been interesting as well is not only obviously experiencing quite recently a real period of overwhelm and sort of navigating that. It has actually been how the themes showed up in my own practice. So sort of previously, and to a point, I very much do. Previously,
the way you said that was just like a TV program, man. Previously, on Men on Form.
Previously, at Clive's coaching practice, the Men's Action Project, he was a man on a mission. He was. No, I'll cut that. So yeah, I mean, sort of in the past, very much had been about and marketed myself as being sort of a bit of a man on a mission. Very much about getting places, creating, realizing that goal, getting the job, running the marathon. It was very much about creation, and still is. And a proportion of clients that come to me do very much want to get moving and start climbing those metaphysical mountains. But I just noticed a trend in the last couple of years. I've just a number of clients that have come to me are actually saying the opposite. In a sense, a guy I was coaching a couple of months ago just come to me and said, Clive, like, I feel, he said, I feel overwhelmed. I've got so much going on in my business. I've got this going on at home. This is going on in my family. There's no time for me. And it was just like, actually what the process of the coaching wasn't creation. It was actually like, I wouldn't say destruction, but almost just letting go of that. So he didn't need to climb a mountain, a metaphysical mountain. He needed to get down and work out which was the one he wanted to climb. And he didn't need more plans and goals. He actually needed to get rid of some of the goals he had. And so the actual result of the process was essentially him creating more space and more balance. And that led to him being less overwhelmed. So it was just interesting for me because I think sometimes there's a myth around coaching, particularly, and I definitely plugged into this earlier in my coaching experiences, that it was about that goal setting and goal getting. But he had goals, but the goals were all about like not doing stuff. So it was like the goal is to not turn the phone on after 7, or the goal is to go to the gym but head to the steam room rather than the weights room. So it's something I'm still feeling my way into and continuing to develop a sort of philosophy around, I suppose. But yeah, coaching can be of great assistance at both ends of the scale, really. Hey.
Yeah, definitely, man. I with that part what you said there, I think with the, like, I see a lot of coaches is how to achieve, like, I'm a results coach and things like that, right? Which is cool. People doing their thing. I ain't got a problem with that, man. But one thing that I've learned over the years, like with my coaching, things like that, it's not just the doing, it's the being, and you have to work on both parts of those.
Definitely,
right?
Definitely.
Because like in my experience, like I said to you before, when we in the previous podcast, it's like my foundations were made out of twigs, so they were constantly breaking. They were easy to burn to the ground, right? So if you don't have the solid foundations in who you're being, right, you will try and substitute that with always doing. But the problem is it'll always catch up with you. So if you're like, I want to achieve this or I want to achieve that, because really I don't feel good enough, or I'm trying to fill a void, or I'm trying to escape something. So here's a fucking beautiful lead to this, man. I watched something yesterday. I just started watching the SAS thing. I can't remember what it's called now. SAS.
Is it like one of those, like reality TV shows?
Yes. So there's a guy on there, and they're reading out his profile because they're trying to get to understand this guy, so they can get into his head. And they was looking at this guy, and it said, I'm spiritual. I've become spiritual. So straight away, this other guy went, interesting. What's he trying to hide? Because he's not told us everything. Anyway, so they got him in and started interrogating him a little bit. And he said, no, I'm a spiritual guy now and all that. This is really fucking interesting, man. And they went, what are you trying to hide? And his look on his face, and he was like, nothing. They went, don't bullshit us. What are you trying to hide? So then he spilt the beans. He got into crime. He had a gun. He went to prison. He felt ashamed of it. He struggled to control his anger, right? Struggled to control his anger. At one part in the program, you started to see this anger come up in him, right?
Yeah.
And then there was a part where he fucked up and he had to stand in the middle while everyone else around him had to do these exercises because of his fault. And he's like, I quit. And the guy goes, why are you quitting? He went, I can't control this anger. Right? And he went, okay, cool. He said, you can walk away from this or you can stay and learn to deal with this. So anyway, he stayed. But here's the lesson in this, Clive, right? Is he was struggling with the being part. Like he was struggling with something in his life. So he was compensating it with something else. And I see this a lot with people that get into spirituality or they get into positive thinking or get into this because they're trying to disown a part of themselves, right? And this is the part where people are constantly always. And I'm an advocate for striving for more. I think the route to happiness is progression, but it's not just progression in money. It's not just progression in your body. It's progression as a husband. It's progression as a father. And this guy was struggling because he hadn't dealt with the anger. He hadn't looked at what the anger was showing him. He hadn't experienced the emotion, so he was trying to compensate it with what they call spiritual bypassing, which is I become spiritual or I believe in God, but they're trying to do it to compensate for something that's going on at a deeper level. And they expose that. And this is what I see.
Yeah.
This is what I see a lot inside my coaching is, you know, I'm all for it, right? You want to achieve this, great. You want to make this much money, great. You want to do this, but also, what do you want to do in your relationship with your wife? What do you want to do in your relationship with your kids?
Yeah.
Oh, my relationship.
How do you want to be in that place?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Oh, my relationship. It's not good with my wife. It's not good with my kids. So now you're overcompensating with working, right? Versus being a great husband, great father. So I totally agree, man. Is that there's always a lot of times someone's trying to. We're all trying to do something to escape something else, right?
Oh yes.
Yes.
Oh yes.
And we've got to learn those lessons in the things we're trying to escape because what you can't be with will not let you be. What you can't be with will not let you be in it. It'll always catch you up and bite you on the ass at some time. Yeah.
Definitely. No, that's I'm just sitting with that, man. That's that makes sense. Do you know what, if you had said that to me about 3-4 years ago, I would have been too busy doing something to even hear it. So that's nice, Michael, but I've just got to like continue working on this website page. But no, that makes sense. And I think there's this idea that progression, is about that sort of like creation and going forward, when actually regression is progression. To go all Yoda on you, mate. And like, okay, we're men on form, right? But sometimes to be on form, it's time to get off the pitch and have the off season. Because we've seen what happens when players play too many games. They break down, they get injured. And it's, I think part of being on form is knowing when to get off the pitch. And it might not necessarily be about winning the cup. It might be just the actual gift is deciding that you don't want to play in the cup in the first place because it's time to step away. So there's a balance to this, all right. Hey, I mean, there's the other side, and maybe we'll do an episode on Underwhelm because there is another side to this. I mean, it's something, and I mean, one theme I have noticed in my practice and in my own life is technology as something that definitely in a proportion of people's lives has a detrimental effect and can lead to overwhelm. Because the way I see things, like this is where I know I'm getting older. Back in the day,
during the war,
back in the day, when I left work and got home, the work was at work and home was at home. Now, in certain instances, people have got access to work via particular devices. And even if it's a soft touch text message about something that's going on at work, or something as more extreme as in logging in at 11 o'clock at night, it's basically blurred the lines between home and work.
Mm.
And I
That's-
think it takes me, because of also how addictive these technologies can be and are designed to be, to get our eyes on. So we look at the marketing shit and buy stuff, particularly. It's real hard work to actually unplug from some of these things, and I'm continually trying to tweak and play around with ways I can have clear boundaries between work and home life. And now, particularly because my office is at home, it's even more important, because in my experience, not being able to switch off from work and then being at home can then contribute to overwhelm. And I think technology in the modern age has got, in a proportion of certain people's lives, a huge part to play in this particular
yeah.
challenge that we face. And I include that myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've definitely
And
had issues with it in the past.
I want to add to that. One of my goals for this quarter is my phone goes off when I'm at home. My phone, and this is what I'm working on at the moment with my family and my relationship, is my phone. My goal is to deepen my relationship with my wife and my kids. My plan is
Yeah.
turning off my phone at 4
Yeah.
o'clock every day. Right, Saturdays and Sundays, I don't. I plan not to have my phone on. And Monday to Fridays, it goes off 4 o'clock. Why? Because my phone is the thing that, and it's not my phone, it's me,
Yeah,
right?
it's
Let's
the
just take
relationship
complete,
to these
yeah,
things, isn't it?
it's complete responsibility here. But
Yeah,
when I'm on my phone
total
doing
ownership.
something and my kids are trying to talk to me, or they start fighting and start shouting, that's when I get most irritated. And that's when I feel most overwhelmed. Why? Because my attention is trying to do something or write something while I've got kids screaming and shouting. And then I'll react to that and say to them, for God's sake, stop shouting, stop doing that, stop fighting. God's sake, and they're not doing nothing, they're just playing. But it's because I'm engaged on my phone and distracting myself doing something that I can have problem. So for me to remove that little device
Mm-hmm.
from my life for that period of time, then I could be engaged with my family, I could play with my kids, I could do that without having that temptation of I'll just pick up my phone. And I'm not saying to our listeners here, for one thing, I want to be really clear on this, that I'm executing that at the moment perfectly. I'm not, right?
Okay.
But this is what I'm working towards, because I understand that when I'm on my phone and I'm distracting myself, that's when I most get irritated with my kids or my wife when they're asking me questions or answering things,
Yeah, it's for me, it's also been an ongoing battle and a step-by-step approach.
Mm.
One of the things that I do is I keep my phone out of the bedroom. So the phone's downstairs in the living room. That was the first step. And something I've done recently, I've realised, for me, WhatsApp in particular, and particularly because of this sort of nature I have around banter and comedy stuff, I can just spend ages putting together a what I feel is funny WhatsApp. Most people don't find it funny, but I just sort of can spend ages on this stuff. And I've actually used the child lock features now that are on the phone. I've got an iPhone 7 and it's got this screen time thing, and I've actually put a lock on WhatsApp, so I have to go in, and I've put the app right at the end of my app, so I have to actually go in, and then I have to put in a passcode to allow myself to use it, because I just can't be trusted just to have it there on my phone.
So,
I just find myself pulled in. So it's not, it's a small thing, right? It sounds like a small thing, but it's a big thing. It's definitely something that can contribute to me feeling overwhelmed, because I feel like I've got to respond to certain things, or I've got this funny thing, like this little funny thing that I need to get out, and it takes me away from being present with my wife and son, or focusing on something else that I'm working on at that time. And it all just contributes to the potential for overwhelm, whether that's overwhelm in an extreme term, or just that flicker of overwhelm that can hit us at any point during the day. So
yep.
a
So
rich topic.
I'll share this. So my screen time, I've got it on my phone. I've turned it on. So I only allow myself an hour a day on Instagram and an hour a day on Facebook, right? Now, bear in mind that some of this I do use for business, yeah, answering messages, answering emails and stuff like that. But the last 7 days, screen time, 31 hours and 6 minutes. You have spent 19% of your time on your screen over the last 7 days. 19% of my day. Instagram, 6 hours and 49 minutes. Facebook 3 hours and 35. Then you got WhatsApp 1 hour and 51. Right.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, the beautiful thing about this screen time, man. I know we're kind of coming off, kind of a little sidetrack here, but the beautiful thing about
But
the
it contributes to
screen time,
overwhelm,
yeah,
Michael. At
yeah,
least for me,
definitely,
this is my experience. My engagement with my unconscious engagement with technology can contribute to me being overwhelmed. No
yeah, yeah,
shadow
yeah,
about it.
yeah, definitely. And the thing is with this is when you see this, right, you can't fucking bullshit yourself anymore and say to yourself, I don't have time to do stuff. Because if you could spend 1 hour a day sitting on Facebook or looking on Facebook, how could you use that 1 hour a day to do something productive with your life, like engage with your kids and all that? And that's why I'm doing it. You know, this is why I've put this on. I look at it on a day-to-day basis. I'm like, that's not good enough. You know, some of that time's eating into my kids' time, eating into business time and stuff like that, you know? So, you know, it all
It's all an
contributes.
awareness piece, and
Yeah,
I think to bottom line here, it is not the technology; it's our relationship to the
yep,
technology and
yep,
boundaries that are
yep.
important here. And you know, it's something that say me and you are working through at the moment in different ways, and it's something that definitely is impacting the clients that are showing up in my practice. So a
Yeah.
proportion for sure. So
Mm,
yes,
yes, my friend.
rich topic, mate.
Strong episode, Clive. Strong
Yeah, well,
episode.
we'll do one on Underwhelm
Hmm.
to complement this, because that is another experience that I've had
Yeah.
a lot
Okay.
of, and because that's the other end of the spectrum,
Yeah.
where not where we're drowning, where we're sitting in an empty bath, but- which I've done
Yeah.
on more than one occasion, and metaphysically, of course. I'm spiritual, Michael. So
You just what you compensating for? My spirituality was compensate for my little penis, but it ain't done anything
oh
for
dear.
it.
Let's
Back on topic.
let's leave it
Back on
there.
form. Back on form.
Let's get back on form, Michael, and leave
Yeah.
me sitting
That's
in a bath with no water in, and you
sit, yeah,
using spirituality to deal with your sort of
well, it wasn't just
potential
spirituality.
biological.
It was buying fast cars and things like that as well to compensate for it as well. You know, big fast cars.
Well, I don't know about buying big fast cars. I may be taking, cutting out a picture of too many. I don't. God
Yeah.
knows. Anyway, mate. Let's sign off just by sharing. I mean, anything you got going on at the moment? Anything you want to share with the listeners? If you're interested.
Well, if guys are interested in coming into my world and kind of learning the kind of stuff that I'm doing, helping guys with overwhelm, helping guys to get focused on meaningful shit to them, you know, basically helping guys get their shit together and step up and raise their standards, you know, then you can head over to michealhilton.com. You can send me an email at micheal@michealhilton.com. Micheal, or come and reach out to me on Facebook, man. If you're interested in getting involved in that, I do a 5-day free fundamentals every other month, and I have my 30-day program every month that I do as well, which is a 30-day challenge and teaching these guys how to kind of eliminate all the stress, overwhelm, and anxiety, and start getting clear on what they want and stepping up, man. So yeah, that's where people get hold of me, man. What about yourself, Clive? How about yourself?
Yeah, it's exciting time in my practice at the moment. I've expanded sort of going into 2020, so I've got a lot more bandwidth for new clients, and a couple of things. I've got a new one-off coaching session I developed that's now sitting with my 12-week program, and I offer a 45-minute coaching taster session. Call it on trial, sort of try before you invest. And if you're interested in sort of checking any of that out, all my stuff's over at www.mensactionproject.com. You can contact me through the site there. So yeah, and then Men on Form generally, it's all the usual touch points. There's a bit of spiel after this, isn't there, about how guys can get in contact with us.
Mm-hmm.
We're keen to increase sort of conversation with our listeners and find out what's going on in their worlds and bring that into the show. So look forward to hearing from you guys out there as well on the various different mediums. And I think there's only one more thing to say really here.
What's that, Clive?
And that is, if you're off, Whoa.
Oh!
Whoa, mate.
Yeah, what the fuck?
Lines have been drawn, my friend. How dare you?
Sorry. What is that one more thing to say, Clive?
That is, if you're off form,
get back on form.
And if you're on form,
stay on form.
Do and be well all.
Donny the douche.
If you enjoyed the show, we invite you to leave a positive review on the platform you're listening on. If you'd like to get in contact with us regarding anything that came up in the episode, you can email us directly at menonform@gmail.com.